I finally retrieved my memory. I am Olivia Ross, the assassinated journalist. He is Alexander Sterling, the man who lied and imprisoned me. The truth tore through me, stronger than any physical wound. My reason screamed. He used me for atonement. I am just a puppet. I have a duty to expose his crimes, to reclaim my lost honor. I confronted him in the first light of dawn. He was covered in blood, yet still defiant, still the man with the profound eyes I had utterly fallen for. He offered no excuses, only a cold confession. I committed crimes, Olivia. But I did it to keep you alive. You are my sole purpose. He presented me with an ultimate choice: freedom to expose everything and face the world that hunts me, or eternal imprisonment in his protective embrace, to become the queen of the night. I stared into his eyes. I saw both a dangerous past and a shackled future, but I also saw a fierce, absolute love I had never known. I woke up in an abyss. The abyss of pain and emptiness. My head throbbed as if split by a hammer. Every fiber of my body screamed as if torn apart. Opening my eyes, I saw only a hazy gray and the sickeningly pungent smell of antiseptic. Where was I? Who was I? The most basic questions of existence became unsolvable mysteries. A chilling fear crawled down my spine, not because of the physical pain, but because of the absolute void in my mind. I tried to move, but my left arm was heavy, immobilized by a cold plaster cast. I looked down again and saw countless bruises scattered across my pale skin. An accident. That was the only thing I could glean from the disjointed fragments of memory. Heavy footsteps echoed from the hallway, followed by a whispered conversation. The voices were unfamiliar, yet carried a terrifying tension. I held my breath, my heart pounding in my chest. Were they friends? Family? Or something worse? The hospital room door opened, and a sudden, blinding light flooded in, making my eyes ache. A woman in a nurse's uniform walked in, her face etched with worry. "Miss Olivia, you're awake?" Her voice was gentle, but to me, it sounded like an echo from another world. Olivia? Was that my name? It felt as though someone had just placed a piece into the puzzle of my life, but the piece didn't fit perfectly. I nodded weakly, struggling to speak. I don't remember. Tears streamed from my eyes, hot and salty. They were the tears of helplessness, of fear standing before a boundless void. The nurse rushed over, checking my pulse and pupils. "It's all right, Olivia. The doctor said it might take some time. You were in a very serious accident." An accident. Yes. Flashing images crossed my mind. Blinding headlights, the screech of tires, a violent collision that threw my body up before I fell. Then darkness. The door opened again, and this time it was a man. His figure was tall, exuding a cold, unshakable aura of power. The impeccably tailored black suit hugged his solid frame, highlighting his broad shoulders and narrow waist. His face was sculpted and handsome, with sharp, angular features, eyes as deep as night, and a powerfully intimidating jawline. His jet black hair was neatly combed, and on his lips was a faint, cheerless smile. Immediately, the air in the room became thick with tension. The nurse suddenly grew awkward, bowing respectfully. "Mr. Sterling? Olivia just woke up." Alexander Sterling. The name seemed to carry an invisible weight, pressing down on everything around us. I stared at this man, a mix of fear and fascination rising within me. He was not an ordinary man. That was clear as day. He walked closer to the bed, each step carrying absolute confidence, as if the whole world awaited his command. His dark eyes swept over me, lingering, as if scrutinizing, evaluating every smallest detail. I felt naked, weak under his gaze. "Olivia," his voice was deep but icy, like freezing water. "You're finally awake. You. M. He called me M, a Vietnamese term of endearment and intimacy. A term full of intimacy, yet it triggered no memory in my mind. I swallowed hard, my throat dry. Who are you? The smile vanished from his lips, replaced by a terrifyingly cold expression. You don't remember me, Olivia? His eyes held an inexplicable disappointment, but also something dangerous. I am Alexander, your husband. Husband? My heart seized. Husband? Impossible. I had no memory of a husband, especially one as powerful and intimidating as this man. The void in my head became even more painful. I tried to search, to rummage through the chaos of my mind, but there was nothing. Not an image, not a familiar feeling. He reached out his hand, his long, strong fingers lightly touching my cheek. The touch was cold as stone, yet it sent a strange electric current through my body, making me shiver. Don't worry, my love. Everything will be all right. I'm taking you home. His tone was astoundingly possessive, not a promise, but an undeniable command. He seemed to have already decided my fate. The nurse quickly left, leaving me alone with this frightening man. The room suddenly felt suffocating. Home? I uttered. But I don't remember anything. Alexander sighed, a heavy, authoritative sigh. That doesn't matter. What matters is that you are safe. And from now on, you will always be safe by my side. His gaze locked onto mine. A promise or a prison sentence? I didn't know. I only knew that from that moment on, my life was forever swept into the mysterious darkness of Alexander Sterling. I was Olivia, the woman with amnesia, and perhaps the wife of a crime lord. His arrangements didn't take long. The very next day, I was discharged from the hospital, not to a cozy apartment, but to a vast, isolated mansion on a hill, hidden behind towering iron gates and constantly blinking security cameras. The scent of night roses and damp earth flooded the luxurious car cabin, but it couldn't soothe the fear gnawing at my soul. I tried to ask more about the accident, about my past, but Alexander only said it was an unfortunate incident, a simple traffic accident. However, his eyes, when he spoke those words, flashed with an unusual coldness, as if he was hiding something. Or protecting me from something. The large gates opened, revealing a paved driveway leading to the estate. This was not a home, it was a fortress. Everything was designed to prevent intrusion, to protect. And was I part of that protection? I wondered. Stepping inside, the luxury overwhelmed me. High ceilings, classic paintings on the walls, intricately carved furniture, and sparkling crystal chandeliers. Everything spoke of a suffocating wealth. But there were no family photos, no small mementos hinting at a shared past of ours. Alexander led me upstairs, into a large bedroom. The room was decorated in dark, luxurious, and somewhat somber tones. A king-sized bed with soft silk sheets, a closet full of designer clothes I never dreamed of, a marble-tiled bathroom with a jacuzzi, and on the dressing table, there was a photo frame. My heart pounded as I approached. A woman. She had slightly curly black hair, deep eyes, and a gentle smile. She didn't look like me. A strange relief crept into my heart, immediately followed by guilt. If that was his wife, then who was I? Alexander stood behind me, his shadow enveloping me. That is my mother, he said, his voice suddenly softening, a rare tenderness I hadn't seen before. I sensed a small crack in his cold exterior, a fleeting moment of vulnerability. Perhaps he, too, had his own obsessions, his own heartaches. He placed his hand on my shoulder, a heavy sensation. You don't need to remember anything right now. Just know that you are mine. and I will not let anyone hurt you again. The statement. It was like a proclamation of ownership. It both made me shiver with fear and made me feel a strange sense of safety. In my chaotic world, Alexander's absolute protection became a life raft, even if that raft might be steering me toward deeper, darker waters. I wondered, was that protection a promise or a prison sentence? The following days blurred into a dreamlike haze. I lived in that luxurious mansion, attended to by silent, cautious servants. Alexander left for work every day, his occupation a mystery, but I knew it involved an underworld, a network of power and danger. Every time he returned home, the atmosphere grew tense. He spent most of his time in his study, but always ensured I had everything I needed, from expensive clothes to lavish meals. I tried to find out about myself through those around me, but they only said I was Miss Sterling and had been living here for some time. No one told me a specific story, only vague generalities, as if they were deliberately hiding something. One afternoon, I wandered into the vast library, my fingers tracing the spines of leather-bound books. I was drawn to an old photo album on a shelf. My heart pounded. This could be the clue. I opened it. Inside were black and white photos of an affluent family, but no faces were familiar. Not me. And not Alexander. I put the album down, disappointed, feeling even more lost than before. Suddenly, an icy hand touched my shoulder. Alexander stood there, his eyes narrowed, observing me. "What are you doing, Olivia?" His voice held no anger, but a warning. I was looking for my memories, I said, my voice shaky. "There is nothing about me in here." He remained silent for a long moment, his gaze locked onto mine. "The past doesn't matter anymore, Olivia. The present is what matters. And currently, you are mine." He affirmed his ownership once more. He didn't want me to find the past. Why? What happened before I lost my memory? Was Alexander involved in my accident? Thousands of questions swirled in my mind, but I didn't dare ask. Something in Alexander's eyes told me that delving into the past could be extremely dangerous. He pulled me closer, his breath against my hair. His masculine scent of musk and expensive tobacco enveloped me. "Don't bother with things that don't belong to you anymore. Trust me. I will take care of you." It wasn't a comforting remark, but subtle control. I felt like a bird caged in gold, surrounded by luxury but devoid of freedom. What made a man like Alexander Sterling care so much about an amnesiac woman like me? I wondered. Was it love? Or some other dark purpose? Every time Alexander touched me, a fear mixed with a strange electric current ran through my body. I despised myself for this forbidden attraction to this frightening man, whom I didn't even remember as my husband. The following days were spent in a state of ambiguity between safety and dread. Alexander maintained his distance, but his eyes did not. My every action seemed to be within his control. Bodyguards constantly patrolled the perimeter, and I was not allowed to leave the house without permission. I was like a valuable object, carefully stored yet imprisoned. One morning, as I was having tea in the living room, an elderly woman walked in. Her white hair was neatly pinned up, and her eyes were sharp. She introduced herself as Agatha, Alexander's housekeeper. "Does Madam need anything?" she asked, her tone polite but cold. I looked at her, a glimmer of hope rising. Perhaps Agatha would tell me something about my past. "Agatha," I began, "can you tell me about myself before the accident?" I don't remember anything." Agatha was silent for a long moment, her eyes scanning me with scrutiny. "Madam, the past is the past. The important thing is that Mr. Sterling is taking very good care of you. You shouldn't worry too much about what's gone." She skillfully evaded my question, but I sensed a firmness behind her words, as if an invisible wall separated me from the past. That evening, Alexander returned late. I was reading in the library, trying to ward off loneliness. He walked in, taking off his coat and loosening his tie. His scent filled the air, potent and alluring. "You're still awake, Olivia?" His voice was deep, but tinged with tiredness. "I can't sleep," I said, trying to stay composed. I have too many questions." He walked closer, sitting down in the chair opposite me. His deep dark eyes looked straight into mine, as if wanting to read my soul. "About what?" "About me," I said, my voice catching. "About us. You say you are my husband, but I don't remember, and no one will tell me anything." My eyes welled up again. This helplessness exhausted me. Alexander was silent for a long time. "What do you want to know, Olivia?" "How did we meet? Were we in love?" The questions burst out naturally, like an urgent need. Alexander stood up, walking to the window, looking out at the dark night. His shadow loomed large on the floor, a powerful image. "We met inevitably, Olivia. Fate arranged it. And love. Love is complicated. But I know that you are mine, and I will protect you at all costs." That was not the answer I expected. It was still an affirmation of ownership, a promise of protection, but not the love I imagined. I felt a deep disappointment. Alexander turned back, his eyes softening slightly, a rare and unexpected gentleness. "You used to be very afraid, Olivia. Before you met me, you suffered a lot." My whole body trembled. "Afraid? Why? What happened?" He shook his head. "Don't bother with that anymore. You are safe now. You are here, in this house, under my protection. That's the only thing you need to know. Alexander Sterling, this man, he hid too much. He built a strong wall around me, not only to shield me from the outside world, but also to prevent me from accessing my own past. That concealment only deepened my suspicion. But at the same time, his meticulous care brought a strange warmth. He always ensured I had everything I needed, down to the smallest detail. The books I liked, my favorite meals, even the movies I unconsciously scrolled past on TV were noted and prepared by him. Another evening, I couldn't sleep. I went down to the kitchen for water. A dim light spilled from Alexander's study. Curious, I quietly approached. The door was slightly ajar. I saw him sitting before a large computer screen, displaying complex charts and cryptic texts. He was on the phone, speaking in a language I didn't understand, his voice cold and definitive. On the desk, there was a thick folder. I inadvertently spotted a small photo clipped in the corner. It was me. An old photo, seemingly taken at some event. I was wearing a glamorous evening gown, but my eyes in the picture were filled with fear and a lost look. And next to me in that photo was another man. A handsome man, but his eyes exuded ruthlessness. My heart pounded. Who was this? Why was I next to that man? And why did Alexander have this photo? Alexander ended the call, turning back, catching my eye. A sharp glint flashed in his dark eyes. "Olivia," his voice dropped low, full of warning. "What are you doing here?" I took a step back, terrified. I just came for water." I saw the door open. I didn't mean to. I looked at the folder, at the photo. Who is that man? Alexander followed my gaze. He walked to the desk, picking up the photo. "He is someone not worth your concern. But why do you have a picture of me with him?" I struggled to keep my voice steady, though I was trembling inside. What was my connection to him? He threw the photo onto the desk, roughly. "You are harmed by him, Olivia. He is part of the dark past that I promised to erase from your life." The statement stunned me. Harmed? By that man? Was that why I lost my memory? Did Alexander save me? A horrific fragment of memory flashed through my mind, but it was too blurry, too terrifying to grasp. Alexander approached me, his eyes full of protection, but also something dark, frightening. He took so much from you, Olivia. He made you live in fear. But now, it's over. He will never be able to touch you again. He placed his hand on my cheek, his thumb lightly stroking it. The gesture was full of tenderness, yet it made me feel like a fragile glass doll, protected but controlled. I found you. I brought you back. I gave you a new life. And the only thing you need to do is trust me. But I don't remember. I said again, weakly. You will remember, he whispered, leaning down, his breath against my ear. But not those horrific memories. You will remember that you are mine. Only mine. His words were like a curse, an irreversible commitment. I felt a fear mixed with a fascination. Why was I drawn to this dangerous man? Why did I feel safe in his arms, even as he imprisoned me with his words? I despised myself for this weakness, for the internal conflict between fear and the desire to be protected. And I wondered, was that a promise of a safe future, or a sentence to a lifetime in a gilded cage? Alexander took my hand, leading me out of the study. Go to sleep, Olivia. You need rest. Don't bother with unnecessary things. I will handle everything. His gesture was strong yet full of care. I couldn't resist. I followed him like a fledgling hypnotized by a snake. In the dark bedroom, he sat by the bed until I drifted off to sleep. I felt his presence, a powerful and intimidating shadow, yet my only anchor in this world without memory. Perhaps Alexander was not my true husband. Perhaps I was mistaken for someone else. But he gave me a safety I had never known, an absolute protection I couldn't refuse. I wondered, was I living a lie, or was this my destiny? Weeks passed, and although Alexander kept me under absolute control, his presence, the surprisingly tender care in private moments, began to plant a seed in my heart. A seed of trust, even though I hated myself for it. I was no longer overly afraid of him. Instead, there was a dependence, an inexplicable acceptance. He had made me the center of his world, a center protected with obsession. One afternoon, I was sitting in the garden, admiring the deep red roses. A voice spoke from behind, not Alexander, not Agatha. It was a strange voice, seemingly hostile, with no hint of respect. Hello, Mrs. Sterling. Long time no see. I turned around. Standing there was an unfamiliar man, short and stocky, with icy eyes. He wasn't one of Alexander's bodyguards. The air around him was heavy, exuding danger. I stood up, my heart pounding. Who are you? He sneered. Oh, Madam still pretending to have amnesia? Or has Mr. Sterling brainwashed you? He advanced, his eyes sweeping over me disrespectfully. I've come to take back what belongs to me. Especially you. My whole body trembled. I knew him. The photo in Alexander's study. It was him. The man who harmed me. The one who plunged me into the abyss of amnesia. I stepped back, a sudden surge of horrific memories, the screech of brakes, the blinding headlights, and his vicious face just before darkness, piercing my mind like blades. It's him! I screamed, my voice frantic with horror. He's the one who made me lose my memory. His face darkened. Shut up. How dare you blame me? You betrayed me. And now, you pretend to be innocent to be protected by Alexander Sterling? Do you think he can shield you from everything? He reached out, intending to grab me. But just then, a black shadow flashed. Alexander Sterling appeared like a storm, his speed terrifying. He didn't say a word, only a gaze cold as ice and a powerful pair of hands. A thunderous punch landed squarely on the stranger's face, sending him tumbling to the ground. Blood streamed from his nose. Alexander stood towering, his figure majestic as an avenging deity. His eyes were bloodshot, filled with an intense fury I had never seen. "You," he growled, every word a cold bullet. "You dare touch what is mine?" The possession in Alexander's words was no longer subtle. It was an explosion of power. The man struggled up, clutching his face, fear clearly etched on his features. "Alexander, this doesn't concern you." "She is my wife." "Your wife?" Alexander sneered, a chilling, bone-deep laugh. "She was never your wife. She was your victim. And now, she is mine." He emphasized every word. "You touched what you shouldn't have. You broke the deal." The man retreated, looking at Alexander with terror. "You'll pay for this, Alexander. The organization won't stand for it." "Your organization?" Alexander scoffed. "Your organization will cease to exist. And you will be their final lesson." A team of Alexander's bodyguards appeared, surrounding the stranger. I stood there, shaking, the horrifying fragments of memory rushing back. Alexander turned back to me, his eyes softening slightly, but the lingering anger was still there. He approached, pulling me into his arms. His body was solid and warm, a contrast to the coldness of the situation. "Are you all right, Olivia?" His voice was hoarse, filled with worry. "Did he do anything to you?" I shook my head, my tears streaming onto his shoulder. I remember. He tried to kill me. He pushed me out of the car." Alexander tightened his embrace. "I know. He did many terrible things. But now, you are safe. I protected you, and I will never let anyone harm you again. No one." The words were like a sacred oath. He held me so tight, as if trying to infuse me with all his strength. The fear was still present, but in his arms, I found an absolute safety. I despised myself for accepting this protection, a protection stained with blood and violence. But I couldn't refuse. I was too weak, too empty to stand alone. He kissed my hair gently, a gesture of intimacy and possession. "Everything will be fine, Olivia. He will never be able to hurt you again." "I swear it." Night fell, and a frightening silence enveloped the luxurious mansion. I knew Alexander was handling the problem with the man who harmed me. I didn't dare ask, didn't dare think about it. I could only curl up on the large bed, hugging myself, trying to fend off the terrifying fragments of memory that threatened to surface. The next morning, Alexander walked into my room. His face was cold, but fatigue was evident. He had been awake all night. "It's handled," he said, his voice devoid of emotion. "He will never be able to bother you again." I looked at him, a mix of fear and strange admiration rising within me. What did he do? I didn't dare ask. What did you do?" Alexander advanced, sitting on the edge of the bed. "What needed to be done to protect you? You don't need the details. You only need to know that you are safe. And that's the most important thing." He placed his hand on my cheek, his thumb gently stroking it. "You are mine, Olivia. I claimed you from that darkness. I found you when you were at your weakest. And I will keep you by my side, forever." It was a statement full of authority, full of possession. But in his eyes, I saw something deeper, a strange obsession. "Why?" I whispered. "Why are you doing all of this for me? Are you sure I'm your wife?" "I don't remember anything." He was silent for a long moment, his eyes distant, as if lost in his own memories. You have a resilience and a light in your eyes, like the mother of the child I failed to protect." His voice suddenly turned mournful, a rare vulnerability showing. "A woman and a child. They were harmed by men like him. I couldn't save them. I swore I would never fail again. The obsession with abused women and children, that was his weakness. That was the core motivation for his absolute protection. I looked at him, suddenly realizing something. He wasn't just protecting me because I was his wife. He was protecting me because he saw in me the image of those he couldn't save in the past. I was his opportunity for atonement, his chance to correct his mistakes. I was a symbol, a responsibility. He squeezed my hand again. I will never let that happen to you, Olivia. You will always be safe in my arms. I swear it. Alexander pulled me close, hugging me tightly. His breath was heavy. I felt his heart pounding strongly. It wasn't the gentle hug of romantic love, but a hug of possession, of responsibility, of a blood oath. I closed my eyes, once again, despising myself for this strange attraction. The violence he had just committed to protect me, and the tenderness he gave me afterward, formed an emotional vortex I couldn't escape. He was my salvation, but also my captor. And I wondered, was I falling in love with a devil, or being saved by a fallen angel? After that night of storm, the atmosphere in the mansion grew heavier. Alexander seemed to disappear for a few days, leaving me under the care of Agatha and the bodyguards. I knew he was handling the aftermath of his actions, the remnants of the underworld he had overthrown to protect me. The fear was still there, but this temporary peace only made me more anxious. I felt I was waiting for something, an inevitable consequence. I began to delve into my thoughts, trying to put together the fragmented pieces of memory. The image of the strange man, the screech of brakes, the collision. I felt a strong urge to find out about my past, not only to know who I was, but also to understand who Alexander truly was. One afternoon, I wandered into his study. The door was unlocked. I walked in. Everything was tidy, but there was a faint scent of gunpowder in the air. On his desk, there was a tablet. I curiously turned it on. On the screen was an old news article, an image of a completely wrecked car. And beside it was my face, with the headline, "The only survivor in the horrific accident." Another name was mentioned in the article, the name of another powerful family involved in a money laundering scandal, and another name, the name of the man who attacked me in the garden. He was a member of that family, and I realized I was not Alexander's wife, at least not before the accident. I was Olivia Ross, an investigative journalist. I had been investigating that scandal, and I was attacked because of the information I possessed. My accident was not a coincidence. It was an assassination attempt. Everything suddenly became terrifyingly clear. I was not Alexander's wife. I was a victim, a hostage, someone he used to atone for his past mistakes. He had made me his wife to conceal my true identity, to protect me from the enemies hunting me. Or to keep me by his side, possessively? I felt a profound betrayal, a sharp pain in my chest. Alexander had lied to me. He had imprisoned me with his lies and his protection. But then, I thought of his eyes when he spoke of the woman and child he failed to save. I thought of his rage when my enemy dared to touch me. Did he truly love me, or was he merely turning me into a possession to soothe his conscience? I left the study, my mind in chaos. I needed to confront him. I needed the truth. Hours later, Alexander returned. He looked haggard, his face gaunt, and there was a tear in his suit jacket. The faint smell of dried blood lingered. He had been fighting. A fierce battle. He was not the gentle savior I imagined, but a brutal warrior, ready to shed blood to protect what he considered his. I stood waiting for Tim in the living room. When he saw me, his eyes revealed surprise, quickly followed by tension. "What are you doing here?" I advanced, picking up the tablet, holding it out to him. "You lied to me." Alexander looked at the screen, his eyes flashing with a cold glint. "Olivia." "I am Olivia Ross," I said, my voice trembling with emotion. "I am a journalist. I was investigating the money laundering scandal, and they tried to kill me. My accident wasn't an accident. It was an assassination. You lied to me that I was your wife. Why?" He was silent, his eyes darkening. I did it to protect you. Protect me? Or imprison me? I shouted, tears streaming. You took my memory, Alexander. You took my identity. You turned me into a doll in your gilded cage. Alexander walked closer, his face stern. Listen to me, Olivia. If I hadn't done that, you would be dead. Those people won't let you survive once they know you still remember what you discovered. I had to break every rule, confront the most dangerous enemies to keep you safe. I gave you a new name, a new life, absolute protection. He took my hand, squeezing it tightly. I never intended to imprison you. I only wanted to protect you from a cruel world you accidentally stumbled into. You are a brave journalist, Olivia, but you are also too weak to fight those devils. I saw that weakness, and I couldn't let you be harmed again. I looked at him, his eyes tired, yet filled with an iron resolve. I sensed the sincerity in his words, a sincerity wrapped in violence and possessiveness. He had sacrificed so much to protect me. The wounds on his body were proof. So what about... You saying I was your wife? I asked, my voice softening. And me, resembling someone you failed to protect. Alexander sighed, a heavy, profound sound. You have a resilience and a light in your eyes, like the mother of the child I failed to save. You remind me of my failure. When I found you, lying in a pool of blood, I saw myself in that. Helplessness, loss. I couldn't let that happen again. I told myself, if I could save you, protect you, then I could atone for my mistakes. You being my wife. It was the best way to protect you, to keep you by my side, under my control, under my absolute protection. He squeezed my hand again. I know I was wrong to lie to you. I apologize. But I never regret saving you and bringing you here. You may not remember, but you were in mortal danger. I was the only one who could pull you out. In that moment, I saw the conflict in Alexander's soul. He was a man of darkness, yet obsessed with the light, with the innocence he failed to protect. I was his conscience, his opportunity to find redemption. And I despised myself for feeling a strong tremor when he confessed those things. A forbidden love, tinged with violence and control, yet profoundly genuine. I wondered, could I forgive him, or would I forever be imprisoned in this dark love? And the bigger question was, did I want to escape? That night, Alexander didn't leave my side for a minute. He told me about his past, about the child and mother he couldn't save from a brutal crime syndicate. It was the unhealable scar in his soul, the reason he became a boss, a cold and ruthless man, yet with a deadly weakness, the obsession with protecting the vulnerable. I saw them in you, Olivia, he whispered, hugging me tightly. Innocence trampled, fear in the eyes. I couldn't bear to see that again. I swore I would never fail again. Tears streamed down. I understood. I was not his wife in the conventional sense, but I was a part of his atonement, a part of the destiny he chose. He had gambled everything to save me, to protect me from the world he couldn't save his loved ones from. I was his symbol, a responsibility. We had a few short days of peace. Alexander didn't leave the mansion. He spent time with me, reading books, telling me stories about the outside world I had missed. They were moments of tenderness, quiet moments in the storm. I started remembering more, memories of my work, the people I met, my dreams. I had been a brave journalist, an independent woman, and I had been drawn into a dark world I didn't belong to. But that peace didn't last. One morning, as the first rays of light appeared, Alexander's phone rang. His voice became tense, sharp. I knew something was wrong. He turned back to me, his eyes filled with pain, but also unyielding resolve. They found you, Olivia. Your enemies. They found where I hid you. They are coming here. My heart stopped. I looked at him, feeling ultimate fear. What will they do? Alexander took my hand, squeezing it tightly. I won't let them touch you. Never. I swore it. He summoned the bodyguards. The mansion suddenly became a battle fortress. Alarms blared. Gunshots echoed in the distance. I huddled in the corner, feeling so weak, so helpless. Alexander looked at me one last time, his eyes tender yet filled with sorrow. Olivia, I love you. That was the first time he said those 3 words, a genuine, breathtakingly powerful confession. I no longer hated myself. I had fallen in love with this man, the man of darkness, who saved me with violence and possession, but also with a deep, haunting love. Alexander, I whispered, tears streaming down. He placed a kiss on my forehead, a final farewell kiss. Survive, Olivia. Survive for both of us. Then he turned his back, rushing into the battle. The gunfire intensified. Shouts. I heard Alexander giving orders, his voice cold and definitive. I don't know how long passed. Maybe hours. I only knew that every gunshot tightened my heart. Until a terrifying silence descended. The silence of death. When I finally dared to look, I saw Agatha walking in, her face pale. Madam, follow me. She led me to another room, where Alexander lay. His body was covered in wounds, blood soaking his black suit. He was gasping, his eyes closed. I knelt beside him, hugging him close. Alexander, you have to wake up. He opened his eyes, his gaze weak yet full of love and protection. He smiled, a faint smile, but beautiful and serene. You're safe, Olivia. You remembered who you are? I nodded, my tears falling onto his face. I remember, Alexander. I remember everything. And I love you. I love you so much. He tried to raise his hand in to touch my cheek, but didn't have the strength. Live a meaningful life, Olivia. Find the light. His breathing grew weaker. I felt life slowly leaving his body. The sun was rising, the first rays of light piercing through the window, illuminating the room. Alexander Sterling, the man of darkness, found the light in the final moments of his life. He atoned for his mistakes with his own life. He sacrificed himself to protect me, to give me a new life, a future he couldn't have. Afterward, I found a letter in his study, written to me. The letter said he had arranged everything, transferred all his legitimate assets to me, and ensured that my enemies would never be able to touch me again. He had settled all threats. He had done everything so I could live a peaceful life. Time passed, and I rebuilt my life. I published my stories, exposing the crimes I had investigated. I became a famous journalist, a strong and independent woman. But I never forgot Alexander. His image was always in my mind, a memory of dark yet genuine love, of sacrifice and atonement. 10 years later, I am sitting in a small, cozy house, looking out at the rose-filled garden. A healthy little boy is playing on the lawn. He has jet black hair and deep eyes, just like Alexander. I call him Alex, after his father. The boy runs up to me, hugging my legs. Mommy, tell me a story. I smile, holding him close. I'll tell you about a brave man who sacrificed everything to protect the ones he loved. The sun sets, staining the sky red. The distant church bell tolls, carrying a sad yet serene melody. I know Alexander found peace. His death was not meaningless. He left me a son, a seed for the future, a testament to our love. A tragic love, yet full of redemption and hope. I no longer live in fear. I have lived a full life, living for his part too. And every time I looked into Alex's eyes, I see the light of Alexander Sterling, the man of darkness, who sacrificed to give happiness to the next generation.